What's going on, all you sinners? Father Sin here. Have a very awesome episode coming up here. I had D. Simon from the Second Wrong podcast on the show. You guys need to check out the Second Wrong show. He is one of the original motherfuckers from podcasting. We're talking about all the way back from 2006. Yeah, he's been doing this a long ass time. And it was an honor to have him here on the Sinful Show. Sit tight. His stories are amazing.
I don't think anyone has the right to take the life when I'm under
What's going on, everyone? We're here with D. Simon from the Sick and Wrong podcast. D, welcome to the Sinful Show.
Hey, what's up there, Father Sin?
I'm tired of shit, man. So,
Tell me about it.
Yeah. You're quite the busy guy yourself as well.
Hey, I was up late last night recording an episode with Harrison. Yeah, we were doing. He's going away this weekend, so we had to pre-record an episode on remotely. So we don't really tend to do that. We usually record Saturdays and Sundays in the Sick and Wrong studio. But he met he was actually met a girl from the show, a fan.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they're meeting in the desert, so I don't know what's going to happen. I think he might get stabbed in the dick again. Find out next week.
I hope not, because then he's just going to cry about it.
Yeah, probably. That's the thing. I've met a few girls over the years through this show. My previous host, Wackerly, actually met his wife through the show. I've never met any that I would want to spend too much time alone with. Whereas Harrison's just like any girl that messaged him, he's like, I'll go meet you. Doesn't matter, if she's ever been committed to an insane asylum or how many guys she's tried to stab with a Nazi dagger. Harrison will go meet them.
Oh, you're already bringing up Nazi daggers right off the bat.
Well, that's what happened when so Harrison was stabbed. He had like a dagger from World War II, and she just grabbed it off the table and was trying to stab him in the dick, but ended up stabbing him in the leg instead.
Oh my Lord.
Yeah.
So for my listeners that's not familiar with the Sick and Wrong podcast, why don't you fill them in a little bit about that, about what Sick and Wrong podcast is about?
I'll just tell you right now, just never listen, stay far away. All right. Keep your kids away from it. Just forget you ever heard about it. I don't know. We've been doing it's a good dark comedy show. We've been doing it for a long time. Actually, we're one of the first indie comedy podcasts. We've been recording on a weekly basis since 2006. We've actually never missed a week, which is crazy to think about.
Not even for any holidays or anything like that.
Never missed a week. Yeah, we've pre-recorded shows and put it out, but we've actually we've never missed a week. So since 2006, we're on that right now. We just recorded episode 706. We've been recording on a weekly basis, which is kind of crazy to think about. I mean, I've only missed a couple shows where I've had a co-host do it. Harrison's actually never done a solo show. I don't know if I'd trust him to do one. But Harrison's Harrison, my co-host, he's been, out on vacation. I usually get someone to fill in. Maybe I'll have you fill in one of these days there, Father Sin.
What's that?
I'll have you fill in one of these days.
Oh, I'd be more than happy to, my friend.
I always like to try to do that every now and then. Get some, especially if Harrison or one of us has to take a week off. But yeah, we've been recording, weekly basis since 2006. You can go to sickandwrongpodcast.com and check us out. We tend to do a lot of paranormal, dark news, serial killer, that kind of thing. We discuss true crime and weird crime on the show, and then then usually towards the end, we like to interact with some of our listeners, and there's some weird listeners that listen to this show. This your host of the Sinful Show included, but we like to play, calls and make fun of people. Yeah, it's kind of a fun show. And at the end, we usually wrap it up with a music suggestion
Oh, you
that we
you,
like.
you you guys have some great musical taste at the end of the shows, by the way.
Thanks for that. A lot of people say that they've found out about a lot of music over the years through us. But I mean, if you think about it, like I've been DJing for God now going on now like probably 20 years. And I also collect vinyl. Harrison, actually, that's another thing. Harrison's even showed me about me a lot about music. Harrison used to do a radio show out in New York where he used to spin music. So it's like, we between the two of us, we know a lot of bands.
Now, speaking of being a DJ, didn't you write a book about you being a DJ?
Yeah, so I was so I went to school to be a radio DJ. Like that's what I always wanted to do. And I got a degree in broadcast communications from University of Michigan. And I was, I loved Howard Stern.
I won't
grew up
hold that
listening-
against you.
Yeah, Howard Stern's been always my favorite. But the show that actually what inspired me is when I was a kid, I saw a movie called Talk Radio. It's an Oliver Stone film with I guess he's not really a comedian, he's more of a poet, sort of named Eric Bogosian. I don't know if you ever heard about this, but he plays a shock jock in Texas, and he had this talk show. And I remember as a kid, I saw this show and this movie, and I was just like blown away. Like that's what I want to do. And then I discovered Howard Stern, who I still think is like a genius. Like he's inimitable. No one will ever reach that level of radio genius. But so I ended up trying to do my own show, or I wanted to get into radio, and so then I graduated. And then was doing the whole radio thing in Detroit and Chicago, moved out to San Francisco. And you don't make any money in radio. And now it's like you even make less. Like
No
it's a
shit.
dying. Terrestrial radio is a dying medium. And I kind of learned that the hard way, where it's like, yeah, this sucks. And so when I moved out to San Francisco, I kind of got a job at .com, like a tech thing. And I was making actually really good money for about a year. And then it all busted, like in 2001, I think. It was that whole .com bust. And everybody lost their jobs. And so at the time, I was still doing radio, but it was kind of a weekly thing on like 107.7 The Bone. I wasn't making any money. And I had another show on KUSF, which was a community radio station called Rampage Radio, which is like a heavy metal, kind of like a black metal, punk rock radio show from like 2 to 8 in the morning. Also not making much money from that at all. And so I was struggling. And then a friend of mine was a strip club DJ. And he's actually an ex-dealer of mine. And so he was like, you got a good voice. You should try out. And so he got me a tryout at this club called Centerfolds. And so it's in San Francisco. I went there and I was just like, I'd never done that before, but I had a good voice. I can pronounce things properly. And that's one of the things with a lot of strip club DJs, especially depending on the club. It's like you get these guys that are kind of ghetto and they're just like, yeah, go to the stage, hands together, motherfucker. It's like no one can understand what they're saying. And not to mention the PA system sucks in those places. Like all those DJs usually just sound like it's all muffled. So when I got up there, I was just like, gentlemen, put those hands together. The very beautiful cherry for your pleasure. It's just like it was easy just to do it. And I was actually pretty good at it. I'd almost say that's the only job I ever really enjoyed, is doing that. I should go back to doing it. But yeah, so I started becoming a strip club DJ around like 2002, probably 2001. Did it for about 5 years. I wrote a book about it called Play Something Dancy, about all the horrible, tragic tales of being a strip club DJ in San Francisco. If you go to Amazon, just do a search for Play Something Dancy. You can check it out.
So what was so horrible about being a strip club DJ?
Oh God, the people you had to deal with. Not only did you have like the mustachioed, misogynist manager, you just had these like vacuous women that you had to like talk to. Like the title of the book, Play Something Dancy, refers to this experience. It was almost like Groundhog Day. Just every day, multiple times a day, every shift, you deal with the same thing where it's like you'd be a strip club DJ and it's like, what I would do typically is like sometimes girls pick their own music. And if they pick their own music, it's awesome because they can come up, give you their CDs, and you're like, sweet, now I don't even have to think about it. But oftentimes, most of the time, I'd say the girls depend on the DJ to pick their music. And it's not that hard if you know the girl, you know what style of, if she's like, I like hip hop, it's like, okay, cool, I'll pick out some hip hop music. But then you get these new girls or girls that worked at different clubs and working at your club for the first time. You don't know what kind of music they like. So what I would tend to do is I would just, call them up to the DJ booth, being like, "Hey, what kind of music do you want? My name's D. How's it going?" And then oftentimes the girls would be like, "I don't know, just play something dancey." And it's just like, okay, all right. And then I would play Prince, and that's dancey. And then they'd come back up later, just wasted, being like, "That fucking sucked. You suck." And it's just like, okay. It's I think in the book I read this story about this girl that was the worst. She was the worst one. It's like I tried. She just wouldn't tell me what she wanted. I played like house music, fucking whatever. And finally, I just kind of gave up. And she like came upstairs, wasted, barely even able to stand in her high heel shoes. And she was like telling me how bad I suck. And next thing you know, she's trying to make out with me. And then she just barfed shrimp and white and like wine and or no shrimp and champagne, I would say, and whatever else she was drinking, just all over me.
Yeah.
It's just like it was a typical story of being a strip club DJ.
Yeah, I was getting ready to ask if any vomit was involved with this.
Oh yeah, there's stories about that. There's also stories of the other horrible bodily secretions. But the bright side of it though, I would walk on a Friday night, especially when I was working at Gold Club, with like $1,600 cash
From
in
just
one
playing music for
night,
strippers?
being tipped out by strippers. Yeah,
Man, that's some good money,
That-
man.
fuck yeah, dude. And then I would work 4 nights a week. So I mean, it's the money was insane. Like I got out of debt when I was doing that, and got a bit of a cocaine addiction when I was doing that. But yeah, it's like money's crazy. I mean, oftentimes I remember there was a point where the DJ that trained me this guy was so good. He was so good. His name was Geo, and he had been doing it for a few years. He was a major cokehead, but he was so funny and so relaxed on the mic. And I mean, you're talking about this club. It's like think about it. You're getting like at least $20 from each girl. Sometimes it'd be like 120 strippers, working a shift. So it's like these clubs are huge. Gold Club is a little smaller. It'd probably be like 80 to 100. But I mean, and not every girl tips. But I mean, if you average it out, you can make some decent money. And then if you're also dealing something on the side, you make even more money. But this guy was good, and he kind of was like my Obi-Wan. Taught me how to, especially when I went from like working at the shitty clubs to the big clubs. And this dude ended up getting fired because he like I don't know, lost it and took off for 2 weeks, pulled a Dave Chappelle, and then I ended up getting his shifts. That's when I was making really good money. But then he was trying to get me to come to like a massive club in Vegas called Sapphire, which I think he was telling me he would make $3,000 in a night. Just crazy to even think about. And so sometimes I kick myself for not doing it.
So what made you end up stopping doing that?
Oh, I never actually wrote that. Never wrote that in the book. I never did that. But what happened in San Francisco at the time, there were all the clubs that I started at were owned by Deja Vu, they're like the management company. I think there were like secret owners that were kind of mopped up, but it was Deja Vu that pretty much managed all these clubs. It wasn't like that originally. Originally, like they're different individuals owned all these different clubs, but I think they all sold them to Deja Vu. Deja Vu managed all those clubs. But the club that I worked for, called the Gold Club, was actually owned by Chinese mafia. And these guys, it was a separate club. They were really cool to work for. Super respectful people, respectful of the girls. And that's the thing with Deja Vu. Like they had restrictions on the way. Like girls can't, they'll crack down on it if girls are charging more than $20 for a dance. It's like so it really affects everybody's money, especially like if the girls can't charge as much as they want for a dance. It's like they're not going to tip as much to DJ. Whereas Gold Club, they just paid a stage fee, a flat fee of like $60, kept anything else they made. So for Gold Club, you'd make like some girls would tip you $40 if they had a good night. I mean, some of these girls are walking with like $5,000 in a night. I mean, it's crazy. So anyway, Deja Vu ended up buying out the Gold Club and pretty much bringing in their own DJs. They brought this guy from like Florida or Miami that I mean, he was way better than I was. But they brought this guy in, and I got moved back to the shitty clubs that I started at, and then long story short, this DJ that I'd worked with actually was murdered, and he was a good friend of mine. He was the guy that got me into it in the beginning. He was murdered, and I went to his funeral, and they fired me for missing a shift for going to this guy's funeral.
No
And
shit.
so, yeah. I never wrote about that. I should probably write about that. I was thinking about writing a follow-up book with a couple more stories because it was kind of fun to write that. But I don't know. See if I find the time. But yeah, so I got fired, and then then I kind of went back into getting into the .com world and getting a corporate world. I got a corporate job, so that's how I got out.
So you went from strip club DJ into a corporate job.
Yeah, it was very difficult. It was difficult. It's difficult to make that transition because of this, I don't know, God, almost 6-year gap on my resume.
I bet that's kind of hard to put on the resume. I actually I was a police officer for 15 years, and a old sergeant of mine was he was actually a manager for a strip club down here before he was a police officer, and he had to go through and try to explain all that when he was trying to get police jobs.
I wonder if I think there'd be some transferable skills there.
Well, I think so too. That you're working with the public, and
yeah, you're probably working with a lot of drug users, a lot of addicts, a lot of gangbangers. I mean, it's like, yeah, you get it's a whole melting pot of people in that very diverse crowd hangs out at strip clubs.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, I tell a lot of stories about customers, some girls fighting, some of the experiences I've had hanging out with some dancers. The last story in the book is called Kashmir, and it'll change if you like Led Zeppelin, you love that song. I don't know if you should read that story because it's going to change your opinion, your sentiments on the song after you read that.
Oh man, I need to check this out. I think everyone needs to check this out. I mean, stories about a strip club. Where else are you gonna find that, man?
Well, that's the thing with that book. I made it came out I think in 2013, and I self-published it. I made a little decent amount of money. I think I probably should have got a real publisher for it, but whatever. But it's when you self-publish a book, a lot of people self-publish and they just kind of throw it whatever's up there that they produce. I don't recommend doing that. I actually got I paid a couple grand for a professional editor to actually go through and edit it and make it look professional and make it make sense, because no matter how good of a writer you think you are, you should get an editor to actually go through and read that, and not your friend, someone who does it for a living. It's and then I had somebody hired a graphic artist to design the cover, so it's kind of like a professional book. But I think when you go through a traditional publisher, you don't make as much money, but then they handle all that part of it.
Right.
It's a little bit easier.
I mean, still that's pretty incredible, man. I mean, just hey, I got the story. I want to get it out there, and you did it, man. I mean, that's pretty big, man.
Thanks for that. It's a lot easier when you don't have kids to have to deal with,
Yeah, I know that feeling.
Yeah.
Oh my Lord! Don't even get me started on that, D. So what year did you end up finishing that part, the DJing with the strip clubs?
Let's see. It was probably I was still doing Rampage Radio then. So the whole time I was DJing the strip clubs, that was my goal, is to DJ for a couple years at the strip club, and then just really work hard getting demo tapes out and try to get a real commercial radio gig.
Right.
And so I was still kind of doing a weekly thing on the Bone, and then subbing a couple shows at with the what was that one? 98.5 The Fox. And I was just trying to see if I could get something going, but it was tough. I mean, it's really tough with radio too. And so at the time I was doing Rampage Radio, and I think I quit Rampage in like 2006 and started Sick and Wrong, and I think it was around that same time. It was around that same time I quit, or didn't quit, but got fired from the strip clubs. Which would have been nice to have a lot of. Well, I did have a few strippers on the show.
On Sick and Wrong, or
Yeah, back like in the first. I know in the first season back in 2006 when we started, I think I had a couple strippers come on. But then back in Rampage Radio, we used to have strippers come on all the time. Rampage Radio kind of turned into this like meth fueled after hours party. I mean, it started out good enough where it's like we're gonna have bands that are coming into town, show up at 2 a.m. and we're gonna like interview you about your music and like play metal and hang out. But as word got out, it became this thing where it's like big after party where everyone would show up at like, after the bars closed, wasted. We had a guy that was like a big drug dealer, and he'd be giving people Molly and meth, and it was a thing. And then I'd often bring strippers with me after coming from my shift. So kind of these crazy parties. A lot of those episodes I have on cassette tape because we recorded, but I've never actually digitized them. I should put those up on the Patreon.
Yeah, you should, but you might want to explain to some people what a cassette tape is.
Yeah. Yeah, I bet you a lot of people have no idea what a cassette tape is. That makes me feel old.
Yeah, it makes me feel old too. I remember seeing like my first few local bands when I was in high school, and you'd be able to go into a record store for the ones that know what that is, and you be able to go in and purchase like your local bands tapes and stuff like that as well.
And, you know, and the tapes have made a comeback recently. I don't know why. I would never buy a tape, but they're kind of hip now amongst the young people, the millennials.
Actual cassette tapes?
Yeah, and at least in Los Angeles, 'cause I live out in LA, and it's like you'll go to shows, and especially like, you know, I work with a guy. He's a younger guy on our audio department, and he's in I could say a grindcore band. Maybe it's more noisecore. But he's a younger dude. He's probably like 26. And so I've gone to his shows, and yeah, they don't even press vinyl. They just put it out on tape. And it's like the young people that are into that think it's cool to have tapes again.
Yeah, I thought records were making a comeback. I had no clue about cassettes.
Well, records, you know, I think records are very hip. They've always been, you know, records have always kind of been there, but now they've become very hip to have. So you see a lot of people, you know, or a lot of albums being repressed on all these like really expensive 180 gram repressings of vinyl. So it's become like a very hip thing to have vinyl these days.
Yeah, because I've been seeing that come with like new, like even like the more current stuff out today. People are releasing stuff on vinyl again.
Yeah, I don't see vinyl ever going away 'cause it's kind of a, you know, it's a cool thing to have. I mean, I've been collecting vinyl since I've been like 14 years old. You know, I still buy records all the time. I've never been a huge fan. I mean, I did have some CDs, but I was never really a huge fan of CDs. And tapes are just the worst.
Yeah, you gotta sit there. Oh, I gotta go this far to get to this song, and
right. I mean, at the risk of sounding like a record snob, I actually hate MP3s too, but I do like the portability aspect of MP3s. You know, it's nice to be able to like I can put 100 gigs of music on this phone. You know, and so it makes it worth it. But if I did like at home, I'm not sitting there listening to MP3s.
You probably listen to records then when you're at home.
Yeah, it's like I'll put on a record if I want to listen to music, but records aren't portable at all. Like records are fucking cool, but they're the fucking worst to move if you ever have to move and you have to move your fucking vinyl collection.
Well, I mean, luckily you didn't have to DJ with records back then, did you? You were probably using CDs or MP3s.
CDs. Yeah, it was CDs, and then it like kind of during that time it sort of transitioned to MP3s where you could just bring a laptop in and hook it up to the soundboard. That made it a lot easier. Like, have you ever used Serato? You know Serato?
Yeah, that's what a lot of people are using now.
Yeah, like when Serato came out, it kind of. But at that point, I was already kind of on my way out of being a strip club DJ. But Serato just changed everything with strip club DJing and actually wedding. I was also a wedding DJ at the time too.
Yeah,
weddings and bar mitzvahs.
Oh, you did bar mitzvahs too?
Yeah, I've only done maybe 2 bar mitzvahs, but I did quite a few. My sister is a wedding planner, And so she would hook me up with gigs and weddings, also a pain in the ass, but you can make like $1,000 easy
Oh yeah.
doing a wedding.
Anything with a wedding comes money, man.
Yeah, I mean, weddings were really easy to DJ, but it's like you got to fucking sit there and listen to like the Hokey Pokey and Rockin' Robin and just
The chicken dance.
just some of that music was so bad. It was hard. It's hard to deal with.
Yeah.
You know, it was a funny thing. One more thing about strip club DJing, a rude awakening for me. When I got into it, I assumed that strippers, this is like what 2001. I just assumed they danced to Motley Crue or Poison. I just figured that's what they dance to because that's stripper music is Motley Crue. And when I started working, I was just like, no, none of them danced. And maybe one might dance to Motley Crue. All of them, for the most part, dance to R&B, like R. Kelly or Nelly or 50 Cent or something. That's what they dance to. And so when I started doing it, I was like, holy shit, I got to learn a lot about music or, this type of music. So I actually really got it, really educated myself on mid-aughts, like early aughts to early 2000s R&B and hip hop. So I kind of have like an encyclopedic knowledge of like music from that era just from learning it. And that's how you become a successful DJ is if you like these don't have to ask you to play like, the Ja Rule Ashanti song. It's like you just know what they like to listen to, and I have pretty good memory, so it's like I was able to pick that up. But I was really surprised at the time. And so every now and then you'd get this one girl that would come in and she'd be like, "Yeah, you have any Slayer?" And you're like, "You're the best girl I've ever met," because she's up there dancing to like fucking Angel of Death, and it's awesome.
I've never seen a stripper dance to Slayer. That would be. I'd probably make it rain on her, man.
I remember that there's this girl. Her name was Taste. She was from New Orleans. A lot of strippers in New Orleans kind of migrate. And she was a white girl, but you would think she was black just by her mannerisms. And I think where she just kind of grew up. Beautiful. She was beautiful. And she was like probably like 5'10", but in heels like 6'2". And so for all the other DJs, she would dance to like just ghetto R&B and hip hop. But for me, she would do I don't know, just because we'd hang out and chat. She liked Slayer a lot. And so she would just come out and dance to like Angel of Death or Ministry or Prodigy or something. And just to see this girl on the pole, like fucking spinning around, like she was fucking awesome. I don't know whatever happened to her, but yeah, when she get off that stage, the whole stage would be covered in fucking money.
That's awesome, man. That is awesome. I think everything around here is like low class. I mean, there's like one farther away, but I think the closest ones that are like the like chained strip clubs, like you're mentioning, like Deja Vu and stuff like that. That's all up north in like Columbus and Cleveland and stuff like that.
Yeah, that's kind of how it is in the small towns, except every now and then you might have like a gem of like a weird rural strip club with like, 60-year-old strippers. Like there's a club in Georgia called Mary's, I think it was. Holy shit, this place was like out of a David Lynch film. Fucking weird. I see, I'm not a big fan of strip clubs. They're contrary to like my experience working in them. I was never a big strip club guy. I always thought it was kind of a waste of money.
Yeah.
It's like it's a waste of money. But I do like weird strip clubs. Like when in the 90s, when I first came to LA, there's a club, it's still around now, it's called Jumbo's. Jumbo's is more of a cabaret. Like the girls don't get naked, but they kind of get like really skimpy outfits. So they kind of dance around in skimpy outfits. But this place was just ghetto. You could smoke in there. You get like a Jack and Coke for $3. And the girls, they didn't even have a DJ. The girls have to put money in a jukebox to play their music. But I mean, it was cool though. I mean, they had like Danzig on the jukebox, Guns N' Roses. They didn't have Slayer, but like some pretty cool music. Bowie, Iggy Pop. I mean, it was kind of cool. And the girls there'd be like maybe two girls that kind of looked like all tattooed and hot. And then you'd have like, I remember they had a trans stripper. They would come out with a bullwhip. They had like a dwarf stripper, and then they had this one stripper with one arm. Yeah, she was like, at one point she was pregnant with one arm, still dancing there. And so we used to fucking hang out at Jumbo's all the time in the 90s. But now if you go to it, it's like, it's really cool. It's very hip. Drink
Yeah.
prices are way more expensive because in Hollywood, usually there's a velvet rope of people waiting to get in on the weekends, and the girls all look like suicide girls. All of them are super crazy hot. Still a cool place, but yeah, I like the weird strip clubs. I'll go to those. So that's why in like small towns, I bet you could find some fucking weird ones.
Oh yeah, they're here in Dayton, believe me.
Yeah.
But it's funny you brought up at the wharf when I was in the Army, I was stationed down in Fort Campbell, Kentucky, and I had my 21st birthday down there. And what do you think military people do for birthdays? Yeah, so we're already tanked up, and usually you can find like cheap drinks and stuff like that. It was like $2 pitchers back then, man. And we went down to this, I can't remember the name of it, but it was down there in Clarksville, Tennessee. We're already lit up. And this dwarf comes out stripping, and I about fell out of the chair. Wow. They kicked us out that night because I've never seen that in my entire life.
Did they make you get up on stage?
No, because they didn't tell him. But this dwarf, she come walking out, started stripping, and I started laughing so hard I fell out of my chair. And they're just like, "You guys got to go.
You got to go.
You got to go."
Yeah, that was one thing I write about that, and I wrote a story about that about like bachelor parties and birthdays and the strip clubs. It's like when someone come in for a birthday. Usually you'd have like, it'd be a big group of bros, and one of the bros would come up and be like, "It's my boy's birthday," or "He's getting married." And then you would do like the thing, like the show. And it's like, God, you could be ruthless. Like, you get the girls all up on stage. They'd take the guy's belt off, tie him to the pole, and just go climb to the very top of the pole and just fucking slide down on him like super hard on his dick. Someone would just like jam their ass in the dude's face. But I remember I wrote the story I was telling about, and like the whole time I'm egging people to do this, like egging them on and encouraging them, making fun of the guy for being a virgin and all that shit. You kind of learn how to do that when you've been doing the strip club DJ thing.
Right.
But this one particular occasion, this guy comes in. We used to get a lot of military in San Francisco, especially when it was like Fleet Week and shit. I think this guy was Navy, might have been Marines, but he was just like, you know how like some military guys are party guys, like reform party dudes that went in the military because they had no other options.
Yeah.
Or then there's like the dudes that are like serious military guys who like fucking General Mattis, like that guy is like, he's serious, like fucking weird. To a point where it's like kind of pathological. This guy was like that. He was super serious, very military. And he brought in his little brother who had just turned 18, who I would bet dollars to donuts is a homosexual now. He just looked gay. He had gay mannerisms, just seemed super gay. And he was fucking terrified. Did not want to be in the strip club. And his brother, I think, was just kind of one of those things where he's like, "I'm going to make you straight. And you're going to the strip club for your birthday." And he forced him to go in there. And his brother's like, it's his birthday. Can he go on stage? And so even though it was free, I would usually be like, "Yeah, I can do it. It's going to cost you $100. And I would just pocket the money.
Right.
And so he went up there and put this kid up there. And these girls were, it was awful. They were so hard on him. They just went crazy. Like they were like bouncing, like smacking his head up against the pole, climbing to the top of the stage, sometimes two at a time, just falling on his lap, putting their head into his crotch. And at one point, one of the girls was just like, "Holy shit." And they all started laughing. He pissed himself. Yeah, his kid pissed himself on stage. And so then I kind of wrapped it up. And you could just tell, like, his brother was so disappointed. Just like as soon as he came down, just took him outside. I mean, that kid's either gay now and estranged from his family, or he's a serial killer. One of the other.
Oh my God, we're a serial killer.
Yeah, he's BTK, man.
Yeah, I've never seen anyone piss herself at a strip club. That's the new one to me.
What happened? Yeah, it's the only time it happened.
Oh my God!
I saw puke on a girl because he was so wasted.
Yeah,
because she fell on his stomach and he just barfed. They kicked him out. Yeah, there's funny stories in that shit. I probably have another whole book worth. I should probably get around to doing.
Yeah, you should, man, because I'm gonna have to order this other one first. But yeah, I definitely have to check that other one. I might have to order up a couple extra ones and do a giveaway for my listeners, man. So,
Yeah. Christmas gift. You know what? A lot of my fans are fucking illiterate, can't read, so they've been bitching at me to do an audiobook.
you know what? I was actually going to bring that up.
Yeah, I started doing it. Once again, probably got to finish that, but audiobooks, man, not easy. I mean, I think it'd be cool if like Harrison read it or something. But when you're trying to do it in your own voice, you become super critical, like very critical of how it sounds. And I remember like I spent hours recording these things, and then as I was going through editing, I'm like, oh God, I hate the sound of my own voice. It sounds terrible. So I kind of just stopped. I might need to pick it. I posted a couple of the Patreon page, a couple of
Oh,
stories.
this is coming from a DJ and a podcast, so too, saying I hate my own voice.
No, dude, yeah, I have the worst voice. I have the worst voice. So I think it's just like, man, I don't know, man. Most of the time, I think you're just too critical of yourself. You're too harsh on yourself. So maybe I should just say fuck it and just let it, just release it.
Yeah, fuck it, man.
Yeah.
Yeah, I almost called into your show and said because I think you brought that up because of you were talking about a coworker that said something about an audiobook.
Oh yeah. That guy. He doesn't really bother me anymore. I was happy about that.
Well, that's good because it sounded like he was starting to become a real pain in your ass.
Well, I kind of at my work, I work in a professional environment, so it's like I kind of try to, be very low key about sick and wrong and about being a strip club DJ. I don't go out bragging about it. I don't want people to really ask me about it. But this guy is a nice guy, but he was someone else that knew about it, brought it up, and then he was just head over heels and just excited about it because he likes strip clubs. And so after that, I think he just kind of every time I'd see him be like, "Coming to the stage," like I'm just like, dude, shut it, like Ixnay on the strip club DJ, nay. Like let's keep that to ourselves, all right?
Well, speaking of like work, I mean, it sounds like you work in a pretty professional environment.
Yeah, I'm a project manager at a software development company.
Yeah. So how does that play out with like the type of podcast you have?
Oh, I think it's like I don't know, like a Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde kind of thing.
Well, I mean,
No, I think you should maintain a level of professionalism. And I think work thinks that too. It's like, if you're a member of the KKK, don't wear your fucking hood to work. But it's like, when I go to work, I'm doing work. It's not like I'm sitting there, trying to get new listeners. I mean, if someone asks me about it and I think they're cool, I obviously have discretion. I'll tell them, oh yeah, you should check it out. But I usually don't like to broadcast it because I think it, there's a conflict of interest there. It's like Sick and Wrong. It's kind of one of those. It's a hobby. It's an extracurricular. It's outside of work. So I usually try to like keep the two rather separate.
yeah, but
Plus, I think I'd get fired if they knew about it.
that's what I was trying to aim at is like you guys get on some pretty taboo topics and talk about illicit drug use and stuff like that on your show. I mean,
No, dude, we're degenerates. Just come on, come out and say it. We are degenerates.
everyone's
Very perfect.
everyone's a degenerate one way or another.
But yeah, we tend to talk about we tend to be fairly open about our personal lives, and I think a lot of people like that about. I think it's the they can like relate to us. Maybe it's a good thing, maybe it's a bad thing. Maybe we alienate a lot of listeners. I'm not sure. But that's one thing that I do like about the show, us being honest about, and even like just to be a little serious here, Harrison has a lot of mental health issues. Like he's depressive. He's tried to commit suicide many times. Talks about it in the show, and we've had a lot of people call in and ask us about like depression or email us, and it doesn't even make the show where they ask about like depression and how to cope with it or how to cope with drug addiction. Harrison's been a heroin addict for years. And so, I think a lot of people kind of not relate, but just like find this comfort or this solace in listening to these guys. And, as funny as, and as deviant as we are, we've had a lot of life experience. So we can kind of give some sound advice every now and then.
I mean, that's a really big thing right there. I mean, there could be people in some very dark places, and it can actually be reaching out to you two idiots.
Yeah, I know. Which is my mind. That blows my mind. And like I make, I like kid about it on the show. It's like, yeah, if you're thinking about committing suicide, you probably don't want to come to us for advice. You probably should call like a therapist or something. What kind of blows my mind is when you get these callers that have been like, yeah, I've been listening to you since I've been 11. And you're just like, how old are you now? 22. Like, holy shit, dude. Like we just warped your development to like a mentally balanced individual. I can't imagine listening to our show since you've been 11. It's like, yeah, the horrible things we've talked about over the years.
Yeah, I want to let my kids listen to your show. That made me cough. Sorry. No, I want to let my kids listen to your show. I let them listen to some stuff, but I think there's a limit there, and there's another show I listen to that they're not allowed to listen to.
Yeah, maybe when they, I don't know, come a little older or something.
Yeah.
But yeah, it blows my mind that these kids somehow found it on like, iTunes when they were like 10 or 11. And it's just been listening all this time. It's like, Jesus, it's kind of weird.
Well, I mean, there's a will, there's a way, and kids tend to find shit. I remember finding my dad's Hustlers back when I was like 6, 7 years old.
Yeah, you learn a lot, but that's the thing. You learn a lot. It's like an enriching experience.
Yeah.
So maybe that's what we're doing, helping the kids grow.
So you started the show. It had been around back 2006, and I mean, is this still a hobby? Did it just start out as something fun, or?
It's never been fun. It's a compulsion is what this is.
Yeah.
Healthy compulsion. At the time I was doing that Rampage radio show, that metal show from 2 to 8 in the morning, and I was kind of getting sick of babysitting all these like drug addicts and strippers and prostitutes and all these people that are coming in for this after hours thing. So I was looking for something else to do, and I had been listening to the Ricky Gervais podcast, which Ricky Gervais, the English comedian, he used to do the UK office. He had a podcast back in 2006, and I remember listening to it being like, this is kind of funny, and then thinking, fuck, dude, I know how to use Pro Tools. I have mics at home. Why the hell am I doing this in a radio station when I could just do it at home? And so with Rampage Radio, Wackerly, my old co-host, used to come on the show every now and then, and we would do weird news in between playing like metal and punk rock. And so I pretty much just took out the metal and punk rock, except we'd play like one song at the end, and then just the show is weird news. So we just kind of did that part of it. And we just kind of was like, let's just see what happens. So we started doing it. And at the time, it's like we had a huge audience, a lot bigger than it is now, just because there weren't that many, shows out there. I think at the time there's Distorted View. These guys, a Mediocre Podcast, who I think they might be, they're from Philly. They're cool guys. Keith and the Girl was one. I don't know if that's still around. The Yeah Dude guys were around back then. But yeah, there weren't that many shows. And so, we had like a pretty big audience up until I'd say like maybe 2008, maybe 2009, when like all the comedians started getting involved. And once the comedians and famous people and celebrities started like doing their own podcasts, independent shows can't really compete with that. So it's like we have our own audience, but it's like I can't compete with Joe Rogan. I mean, fuck.
Yeah,
Mark. Yeah, so it's like after that, when like the comedians came on, like we were always like top 20 in iTunes. I don't even know if we're in top 500 now. Maybe we're probably top 200.
That's pretty good still, though. That's
yeah, but we were always top 20. And I know in the UK were like they're very early adopters of Sick and Wrong, which I mean I'd have preferred to have a more of an American audience because it'd been a lot cheaper to ship out shirts and shit. But the UK, like those guys, they have a very dark sense of humor in the UK. And I think they kind of related to the show much more than the Americans did.
You guys actually did some live shows over there.
We did a show at the Edinburgh Fringe Festival a couple years ago. Or no, last year. It was last year. And that was a lot of fun. And we've also done a couple like bar meetups where we like do kind of like sort of a truncated show. But the one in Edinburgh was like a full show where we like, start to finish for an hour. And yeah, I mean we had like I'd say like probably 60 people there. It showed up and it was on like a Tuesday night at like 8. And yeah, and the fans were great. God, those Scottish guys are fucking God, they drink so much. They drink so much. They got us wasted. Wasted. Afterwards, we're just partying with them, hanging out. And just yeah, really cool guys to hang out with. I mean, and that's the other cool thing about some of these fan meetups we do. We haven't really done it too much. Like we have a pretty decent following in Los Angeles, New York, like Texas, but it's not. I don't think we could do a full tour like we could in America because it's so big and it's the audience is so spread out.
Right.
We could probably do a couple different cities, but in the UK, like we could do a show in London, we could do a show in like Bristol, and then like work our way up to like Scotland, and we'd have probably at least 40 to 50 people every night because they
Wow.
just yeah they're super into the show there, and they're like crazy diehard fans. But we've met up with them and just did fan meetups there and had a blast, so it's kind of cool.
Yeah, I mean that's a pretty big accomplishment right there in itself. Being able to just say, "Hey, we're gonna go to the UK and do a show like that." There's some of these other comedic podcasts. I mean, they do stuff over here, but you don't see them jumping across the pond and doing it, man.
They probably do Fringe, I'm sure, because Fringe is kind of a big thing. But yeah, they
Right.
probably just don't go over to. I mean, it's expensive. I mean, believe me, I wish we had more of an audience here.
Yeah, yeah.
A lot cheaper.
Yeah, because I'm like, are they going to talk about doing anything live? I'm like, I don't know if they're going to come over here to the armpit of America or anything like that. But
In the Midwest, it's gonna be kind of tough.
yeah, yeah.
I'm sure there are successful podcasts doing live shows out there, though. So I don't know.
I don't know. I
I'm
don't.
just thankful for any listener we have.
Yeah,
I
well,
listen to.
I'm the same way. I'm the same way as well. Anyone that takes the time to check any show out like this, anyone that's independent, that's a big thing right there, man.
Yeah, man. Yeah, tough.
And you're still independent, correct?
I wish we had. I mean, we have Adam and Eve as a sponsor, but I wouldn't call that really any real sponsorship. We're not involved or affiliated with any network.
Right.
I'm not sure how many networks would have us. That's the thing too. I think there are a lot of networks now that are pretty big, but it's like you kind of have to do that whole thing where you kiss the ass of every all the other comedians, and they come on your show, and you go on their show, and it's like we don't tend to do that. Sick and Wrong's really not all about that. Not to mention I'm a horrible networker. But I don't really want to have like fucking you know whatever comedian, Duncan Trussell or whatever on the show. It's like I just don't care about comedians. I would rather have the guy that fucked the dolphin and wrote a book about it. That's who I want to talk to. I want to talk to the guy that wrote that book about the Nazis who did and all the drugs that they did. I'm more interested in something weird. I don't really care about having this comedian and talking about like, oh, here's your tour and your tour stories. But that's kind of how it is with a lot of these networks. It's like obviously Joe Rogan's branched out. I mean, he started that way, but now he can get anyone he wants on his show.
Yeah.
His show's so. But I mean, he started out just having friends of friends, like from the comedian, the comic community, and it's like, I don't know, man. I don't really give a shit about your fucking stand-up routine and all that cool Hollywood parties you go to. It's like I'd rather interview the weirdo, and
Uh,
then maybe it's to our detriment because we don't, get as many listeners from that. But whatever.
I've had a couple comedians, but they weren't no big time ones, and I wasn't talking about their set. They were just doing what we're doing right now, man, and that's pretty cool.
Yeah,
But
I've had a Kyle Kinane on. You know that guy, Kyle Kinane?
I recognize the name for some
He's
reason.
a pretty big comedian from Chicago, but he's a fucking cool. You'd actually probably really like him. Kind of sounds like you. He's kind of like this sort of degenerate drinker dude that very Chicago, very Midwest, and I think he might even have his own podcast. We've had him on. I've had a couple other comedians on over the years too.
Now, didn't you have a guy on your show that wrote a book about fisting?
Oh yeah, that's one of Harrison's friends. I forget that guy's name. He wrote this book. Yeah, just about like his experience with fisting. It wasn't really like a how to fist somebody book. It was like a book about just his experience with fisting. And he does discuss like techniques and how to fist. And it was like a gnarly interview. I mean, this guy was, I forget his name. Um, what the hell is that guy's name? He's a good friend of Harrison. He's a writer. He's written a couple other books, but yeah, he like came in and just told us, I almost like yeah, I almost vomited because he was going into such detail at one point. But then again, I was asking him all these questions, so I was inviting the details. But it's a very interesting book too because it talks about like when he moved to Los Angeles in the '80s and being gay in LA, and then like meeting people and like how deviant the city was, and then slowly over the years how it became so gentrified. And so he kind of saw that all these like deviant gay clubs where people would be fisting each other in the back, like now it's like a fucking Old Navy. It's like it's a pretty interesting book.
Yeah,
I think it's
that was a very informative episode, and it's just funny because you're just like you totally deflected it. You're like, oh, that's Harrison's friend, and no, I just kind of wanted to like give you. That's not the only type of guest you've had on your show. You've had porn stars. You've had
oh yeah. I just had a male porn star recently. Who's a buddy of mine.
Sterling Cooper.
Yeah, Sterling Cooper. He's a friend. Oh, here it is. It's called "I'm Open to Anything" by Jonesy, William E. Jones. And Jones is actually that's the book about fisting. It's called "I'm Open to Anything." He's been on the show a couple times talking about another book he wrote. But yeah, I think he and Harrison or Harrison's friend published his book. But really, really fascinating guy. Fascinating guy. Topic can be a bit difficult, but
yeah. But he sat through your guys' whole episode, and I think he even sat in through the voicemails, which I thought was pretty cool because he like threw his own input in as well.
yeah, I love when guests do that when they like hang out for the whole. Because sometimes they only come on for just the one, the intro part when we have them on. But sometimes they hang out for the whole thing, and it's like, all right, that's awesome. That guy was totally a good sport about it. So he was cool. But yeah, we do a lot of a wide range of guests. We had Chris Hansen from To Catch a Predator. Did you ever hear that one?
No, when was that?
I don't remember. It was a while ago, but yeah, he wasn't on To Catch a Predator then. He was launching his own show. It was like an online show.
I know which one you're talking about. It's didn't they crowdfund that?
Yeah, he was just. I think it was the Kickstarter was successful, and so he was just launching it. So he came on to talk about it. That was he was pretty interesting. He had some good stories. We had Mary Roach, this author who wrote a book called Stiff about what happens when you donate your body to science after you die. She was also pretty interesting. I don't know. We've had some freaks. We had like Lizard Man. We had like Jim Rose over the years. One of my favorites was what the hell is that guy's name? There's this black guy who wrote a book about befriending KKK guys and getting them to leave the KKK and give him Daryl Davis. That's his name, Daryl Davis, and he would get them to give him his robes.
What?
So yeah, they would renounce the KKK and give their robes to this guy, and he had been to KKK rallies. I remember talking to him like, dude, you have massive balls. You carry your balls in a wheelbarrow to be a black guy going to a KKK rally. But yeah, this guy was crazy. He has a book about it. But he came on our show.
Man, I'm going to have to go find these other episodes, man.
Yeah, I was trying to tag a lot of these old shows on the site. So if you do a search for interview, you can find a lot of the interview episodes. But I don't know.
You guys have so many episodes.
So many.
I've went back so far. Then you guys release other ones, and I'm checking out other stuff. And I get sidetracked, and then the kids want to bug the shit out of me and stuff like that. I'm like, whoa, you've had this guy on there?
Yeah, I mean that's a tough thing with I actually don't listen to too many podcasts. I think it depends on when you can. Like, I mean, you said you work for USPS, right?
Yeah.
As a mail. So you could just kind of listen all day and just have your headphones on, listen to podcasts.
I'm not really supposed to, but yeah.
Oh, you're not allowed to?
You're not supposed to have
You're not allowed
anything
to
in
listen
your
to music?
ears. Well,
What the fuck?
hold on. I don't wear earphones. I have a speaker and I can listen to it there.
Oh, you can
I
listen
just
on
covered my
speaker.
ass off.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a good thing to do is you could put on speakers. I'm surprised. I always thought if I was a mailman, I'd be just fucking listening to fucking like Creator and Iron Maiden, just going out and just delivering mail.
Oh,
I didn't know you weren't allowed to have headphones on.
Yeah, you're not supposed to have them on because it can
Can't see the dogs. when they attack you.
interfere dogs, stuff like that. But you can have like a speaker as long as it's not going directly into your ear.
I guess that's cool. You can put them on your car. But yeah, what I'm saying is like you have like truck drivers. You had a lot of truck drivers listen to the show because they're driving a truck and they could just listen to it. I don't know. When I'm at home, I'm not sitting here listening to a podcast. And at work, I have to fucking, interface with so many different people. I don't have time just to sit there.
Right.
Occasionally, I do. So I don't actually get to listen to that many podcasts. So it always amazes me when I hear someone like you that says like, yeah, dude, I went through and listened to like 100 episodes. I'm like, holy shit, dude, that's some fucking dedication.
Well, I mean, I get off work and I come up here and work in my office and because I think I told you I do like the hair and beard care products and stuff like that.
Oh yeah. You mentioned that. You
So
did the beard.
I listen to stuff up here as well when I'm working. So it's like I got all day there, then I'm coming up here, and it's just like, yeah,
It's a side hustle.
yeah, pretty much. That's why I started this whole thing, and that's matter of fact. I was sitting in my other desk, working on some orders when I first heard of Harrison come on the air and go talking about his asshole bleeding. I'm like, who
How
the
did you
fuck are
find
these
it?
guys?
Did you find it on iTunes or something?
Yeah, it was on iTunes. It was suggested to me from listening to. Fuck, I don't even remember, but it was just like it was suggested to me, and I go, sick and wrong. I'm a pretty sick fuck, and fired it up, and it was like, this is D, and this is Harrison, and da 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 da, and you're asking Harrison what's going on. He's talking about his asshole, and I go, what the fuck is this? And I was just like, I was hooked ever since, man.
Yeah, no, it's like I don't even want to know what's causing his asshole to bleed. You never know. You never know what that guy puts in his ass. Have you listened to the episodes of my brother? Speaking of people shoving things in their ass.
I've heard you talk about your brother a lot, but I don't think I've heard one about your brother.
Yeah, I don't remember. Like some of these, he's been on a few times. Then for a while, he wouldn't come on because we were pissing him off too much. And we used to just
Imagine
for a
that.
while. Well, Wackerly's really good friends with my brother too, and so for a while we called my brother just all the time, just kind of every time we recorded, and he would get really upset about it, so he stopped coming on the show for a bit. But I think he's come on like the holiday shows. But I remember one episode in particular we were talking about like, God, it was an early one, like episode 100 or 50. Like, what's the most sick and wrong thing you've ever done or you've ever seen? And I told my story. And Wackerly told his story, and then my brother comes out with a story that just destroyed both of ours. Where it's just like, Jesus Christ, it's the most disgusting thing I even can imagine. It involved like men filling their testicles up with some kind of solution, and it ruptured. It was, I don't even want to get into it. It's gross.
You've actually brought that up a couple times.
Have I?
Yeah, you brought it up a few times on other episodes, and I'm just like, what?
Yeah. My brother's seen some shit.
Your brother lives quite the eccentric lifestyle.
Yeah, he's that's the one thing about my brother. He's always lived his life how he wanted to, and I respect that.
Yeah.
I was talking on the show recently. I was just in San Francisco, and I was hanging out with him for the day, and my brother's had a couple heart attacks. He's been doing drugs for a long time. He's been smoking cigarettes since he's been 12. He works at a leather bar in San Francisco, and he just doesn't even give a shit. He's never going to change his life. Drives a motorcycle, and I'm just like, maybe you should not eat 2 bags of Doritos and drink a 2-liter of Dr. Pepper for dinner. Like, maybe you should try to make a salad. And my brother's like, fuck you. I don't care. I'll eat what I want. So it's like I went food shopping with him. It was the first time I've done that in years. And we were just arguing the whole time about, what he should be buying, what he should be eating. And he's going to do his own thing. And I respect that. Even though, he's probably not going to live past 55. I respect him. He can live his life his own way.
Right. Well, that's being supportive, I guess.
But you never know, though. I mean, there's some people like my brother might be like Keith Richards, doing drugs up until they're like in their 80s and just, then that's fine. So
that's right. He's still alive, isn't he?
Yeah, Keith Richards is still alive, which I don't even understand. I think it's a medical anomaly. It's like, medical wonder that guy's still going.
And if I'm not mistaken, they were touring this year, weren't they?
Yeah, a friend of mine, Joe Kelly, who's been on the show a few times, went to see him in San Francisco. I've seen the Stones once, and that was like in the 90s. And I remember thinking, God, these guys are so old. Can you imagine seeing them now? It was like, I think they played Soldier Field in like 1999, 98. I think it was something like that. And I went and saw them that year. It was an awesome show, but I was like, God, these guys are so old. And then my friend Joe sent me a video from like the Jumbotron of them playing in San Francisco. And I was like, dude, they seriously look like senior citizens just kind of walking around. They still sound all right. It's like a bunch of senior citizens playing keyboards and guitars. Don't get me wrong. I think they're one of the greatest bands of all time.
Yeah, it just blows my mind. They're still out touring, man. It's just.
But you never know. Like I saw Iron Maiden a couple weeks ago, and those guys are also getting up there. I mean, they're younger than the Stones by probably a decade at least. But I mean, they're probably in their 60s, mid 60s. Holy shit, they fucking just awesome. Done a great show.
They're touring again.
Yeah, Maiden tours every couple of years, but oftentimes they'll do a tour for a new album, which sucks because it's like, who cares about their new records? But then the next year they'll do a legacy tour where they only play old music.
Oh, no shit.
This year was a legacy tour, and it was awesome. It was great.
Do they bring out?
It was funny.
The
go ahead.
They bring out the Iron Eddie and all that.
They had every song. Like every song, they had a different stage prop. Like Number of the Beast, they had this big, huge demon thing coming out over the crowd. It was pretty fucking awesome. Trooper, they had this like 15-foot trooper guy that he was fighting with a fucking sword. I mean, it was pretty amazing. But what's funny about it is Bruce Dickinson. So I saw him in Oakland, and everybody smokes weed in Oakland. I mean, everyone smokes weed in Oakland. And I guess Bruce Dickinson just hates marijuana.
What?
He hates it. And so as soon as he came on stage, he's like, I can smell your weed. Going to rot your brains with weed. And then he's just going off about it. And he did like 3 times. He's like, I can smell this weed. What do you tell your children when you smoke weed all night? It's like just stupid shit like that. But you should be listening to heavy metal. That should be your drug of choice. Yeah, he's really anti-weed. But then again, look at that guy. Talk about overachiever. Motherfucker is like an Olympic-trained fencer, opera singer, and a pilot, and lead singer of one of the greatest heavy metal bands of all time. That's an inspiration.
Yeah, that is. That's probably why he doesn't do drugs. It probably slows his ass down.
Yeah, exactly. I think maybe he should probably chill a little bit.
Yeah.
Watch Netflix.
Well, you ain't gonna get nothing done doing that, though, are you?
Exactly. Yeah.
Man, I didn't realize he did so much stuff.
Oh yeah, no, that guy, it's crazy. I was talking to a friend of mine at that show, and he was telling me about that. I'd heard that he was an opera singer and a pilot. I didn't know he was like a fucking fencer, like an Olympic trained fencer, like he's competing at that level. Crazy.
I never knew anyone that's ever done that. So
don't think there are too many people in heavy metal that do that.
No.
See Ozzy up there fucking with a foil fencing someone.
No. Oh my goodness. Man, that's crazy.
Yep.
So, oh man, we're all over the place. But overall, who would be like your favorite guest overall, though? I mean, 700 or some shows, you've got to have at least one of your favorite interviews.
Shit. Let me think about this. I mean, I really like that Daryl Davis guy who was talking about the KKK thing because that was crazy. I remember at one point I asked him, I was like, "You ever put the robes on? Just look in the mirror, see what you look like?" And he's like, "Yeah, all the time." And I was like, "Okay, that's weird." um, let's see. That guy was really cool. You know, one of my favorite shows I did is that when I had my father on. You know, I said sometimes talk about my father's a rabbi, and I talk about him every now and then on the show, and sometimes we do his voice because he had a very interesting voice. He's English, but then also grew up in America, but also Jewish, so he kind of had this like weird accent. But we did a show about circumcision and a point counterpoint thing. So we interviewed this guy who was like a total like foreskin intactivist. He was like an activist that was against, or he calls himself an intactivist, and he was against circumcision. And he created this device that you could pull your. It was called like I forget, like the foreskin tugger. You fit it over your dick and you pull all the time on this thing, and you grow your foreskin back. And so, yeah.
I remember that episode now I think about it.
And so, I mean, it was a while ago. I think it was before Harrison. And yeah, he was talking about how it's like, you're brutalizing children, and it's like, you shouldn't be doing this, and there's no reason to do this. And he was anti-religion and all this stuff. And then so that was the point. And then we had the counterpoint. We had my dad on, and my father was a rabbi, and my father was just like, it's a covenant with God. He's like, Abraham said you chop your dick. And so we were asking him about like, why? But why would you do this? And then I remember at one point I was asking him like, so don't you think the kids are in pain? And my dad's like, no, they're not in pain. And I'm like, well, how do you know? It's like, you're chopping the tip of their dick off. And he was just like, oh, because we give them a little bit of wine. And I'm like, you got to be kidding me. You give a newborn infant, he's like, just a little bit on your finger. You just put a little bit of wine in their mouth. I'm like, well, so you get the kid buzzed, and then you chop the tip of their dick off. And then he's like, yeah, well, Jews have to have 10% off everything, okay? So I was just like, all right. But yeah, it was a pretty cool, that was a cool episode, and I was really surprised. I don't think my dad ever really fully understood what a podcast is. He just thought it was this fun thing that I did with my friend.
Yeah.
Do something to come on. But he was a good sport about it. It was definitely one of my favorite episodes.
I got to actually rewind on that. I'm thinking of the other guy that was putting a device to talking about writing a book to enlarge his penis.
Oh, no, that was Sterling Cooper.
Was he on there more than once?
That was towards the end of his the interview. He was promoting this book he's writing about growing your foreskin back.
Yeah, but didn't you have another guy on there as well before then?
The foreskin has been a topic of conversation on the show several times.
Well, a lot of topics I hear on your shows: foreskin, shit, drugs. Let's see here. Feathers, sex.
Yeah, deviant sex.
Murder.
A lot of murder.
And whatever else your callers call you about. So.
Yeah, that's the one thing about the show too. It's kind of grown into this thing where it's like we have this like really weird community of contributors and people who call in, and a lot of oftentimes I know now it's like they want us to give them nicknames, and we do give some people nicknames. Or some people like give their own. Like, what was that one guy? He was one of my favorite callers. I think he stopped calling Batman villain. We call him Boner villain.
That guy scares me.
A lot of people are like, you should be careful of that guy. Like, he calls in cocking his like weapons. Yeah, whatever. Yeah. I think that guy's shit. He's an incel that lives with his mom. But a lot of he combs his mom's hair on Friday night. we have a lot of listeners like that, but at the same time, we also have like some other, and well, I'm not just talking dudes. We had a lot of girls that call in with some really disturbing stuff. Like disturbing stories and things like that. So I think that's one thing that keeps me going is just like the fans and how into it they are. Because we don't make much money off the show, and it is kind of fun to do it. And, to be honest, if I didn't do the show, I'd probably never hang out with Harrison. Like, he never leaves his house. So it's kind of like a thing that we kind of get to do, kick it with him for a couple hours, and it's kind of fun. A lot of work. It's a lot of work, but it's rewarding. It's a good time doing it.
Yeah, I mean, you guys have some awesome callers. I'll tell you that much right now. And some of them, it's just like some of the stories is hard to believe, but you know what? That's fucking entertaining, man.
Yeah, oftentimes you're just kind of like, what, really? And there's there are some times that we call bullshit. We're just like, I don't know if I believe this.
So how'd you end up meeting Harrison?
So Wackerly left like around he wanted to leave earlier than episode 500, but I got him to stay on to 500. And then I was just thinking of just quitting the show back then. But then my friend, a good friend of mine, Lenora, who we've spoken about on the show a few times, she met Harrison on Tinder. And she went on a date with him, and it was just one of those disaster dates where she was just like, this guy is fucked. He was talking about scoring heroin off of some guy in the Czech Republic, and then almost getting like his throat slit by these guys. And she was just like sitting there the whole time, like, okay, I am never dating you again, but you should be my friend because you'd be great on this radio show. And so through her, I think I think I needed. I knew Wackerly was leaving. And so I was like, I tried out a couple people, and I had she gave me his number, and I hit him up, and he came over, and that guy has a radio background. He's got a great radio voice too, way better than mine. He's got a great deep baritone kind of radio voice. And so he did a show in New York on the one in Jersey, WMNME. I forget which one it is. But anyway, he did it's kind of very similar to the show I did by Metal Radio Show on. It's a community station in New Jersey that he did, the WFMU. I think that's what it was. And he did a show like this about psychedelic rock. They did for years. And so when he came on, it was just like, it worked really well. Like, we didn't step on each other. He's a funny guy. He's really intelligent. Had some really good input. Believe me, he's fucked. He's very difficult to work with because you never know. Like if he's like on a blackout. Now he's a little bit better now that he has an actual job, but he was unemployed for like 2 years.
Yeah.
And then and that guy, I mean, that guy was kind of crazy. But now that he has an actual job, he is a lot more responsible, so he doesn't get as fucked up. I don't think he's actually stopped using drugs, though. But anyway, yeah. So he came on the show, and we tried him out, and I was like, oh, this guy's great. And then, then we took I think we took a month off, which I probably shouldn't have done that. Because we took like a month off to kind of regroup and try to figure out what I was going to do. And I thought I was going to quit the show. And during that time, I think we lost a lot of listeners. And then when Harrison came on board, we lost a lot of listeners too, because a lot of people didn't like him because they were comparing him to Wackerly. But then over time, I think a lot of people like him a lot better than Wackerly. I think now it's like, I think people don't even like to listen to the old shows anymore. So,
Well, like I said, I found you guys when he was the, like I said, the bleeding asshole and whatever. And you guys, to me, it sounds like a perfect combo. And what cracks me up is the chemistry between you two. And like, you'll rev him. You give him a good ribbing, and like sometimes it takes like a second, but then he's like, "You fucking mutt."
He gets really pissed off, yeah. But he brings a lot to the show. He's a really funny guy. He has some great insight, and and I do enjoy doing the show with him.
Yeah,
so that's kind of good.
Yeah, he's a good dude, man. I've tried reaching out to him a few times. He's a little difficult to talk to, but
oh yeah,
I keep it short.
Got a short attention span.
Yeah. No, that's awesome. So it's, let's sit here and plug a few things for you. You got some shops, you got the books, you got plug everything you want to plug, man.
All right, let's see here. You guys could go check us out on iTunes. Just do a search for Sick and Wrong. You can go to sickandwrongpodcast.com and you can download the show directly from our site. We do it on a weekly basis. Let's see. We also have a Patreon page. So the Patreon thing is relatively new. We've only been doing it for about a couple of years now. But what we do on Patreon is we do one extra news story, some extra phone calls that don't make it on the regular show. And lately we've been doing our outtakes, which people seem to really like, where it's just usually before every show, I just start recording everything now. I turn on the mic and me and Harrison just shoot the shit. Usually just because we catch up, because I don't see him that often during the week. And it's like, we'll just talk about what's going on and what you've been doing and all this stuff. And so, or, we talk about current events and things like that too. I think this week we were talking about the impeaching of the Orange Man. And so we were chatting about that, and we were chatting about, some other things. And so, so what we do is we take those outtakes, and somebody could be an extra 45 minutes. We just post that to Patreon. And so we have a few people there that, quite a few people that signed up for that, support the show, which is cool. That's patreon.com/sickandwrong. If you want to check out my book, you can go to sickandwrongpodcast.com and click on shop, and you can see the store there. And then you can get a link to my book, Play Something Dance. You can also search on Amazon. And Harrison actually has released a few graphic novels that are really good. That guy's a really good writer. And he's, I can't think of the name of him right now, but if you go to sickandwrongpodcast.com/store, and you can check out Harrison's novels. Oh, Golgotha. That's a really good book that he wrote.
So he's done graphic novels?
Yeah, he's done comics. I mean, he doesn't illustrate them. He's got artists to illustrate them, but
right.
He wrote a book called Golgotha, and he wrote another one called like Brooklyn Gladiator with it was a thing he wrote with Dan Fogler, who's in Fantastic Beasts movies. They're friends, and he knew him in New York, and so they co-wrote this book called Brooklyn Gladiator. That's pretty badass too.
That sounds badass, man.
Yeah, he's a really good writer. I wish he'd write some more graphic novels. But yeah, so and stay tuned. I'm thinking of finishing up that audiobook and possibly putting out another strip club DJ book. I got a few stories just sitting there.
Have you ever thought about doing your book in Braille?
No. I have never thought about putting my book in Braille. How do you do that?
No, you said, because you're just like that guy said about the audiobook, and you're like, that's too much fucking work. And I'm like, well, what about doing it in Braille?
I don't even know how you do that.
I don't know either. I just thought it was an asshole question, man.
Yeah, the blind people that want to read it.
Yeah. I had a couple other ones and I forgot, but something about, could you start transcribing your show or?
Transcript? Yeah, I guess we could, but I don't know why.
I don't know either. It's just stupid, dumb ideas. So, yeah, dude, I really appreciate you coming on the show, man.
Dude, it's been a lot of fun chatting with you there.
Yeah. I wish I would have started the audio earlier for outtakes, but I'm not at your level yet.
Hey, that's one thing I've learned from podcasting. It's like, I record everything. I wish I would have gone back and record and keep everything too. I've deleted a lot of stuff over the years, which storage is cheap. I should have kept it. Like me and Wackerly, we had some great outtakes, and I thought I had a lot of them, but I guess I don't. But yeah, I think one thing I've learned is just record everything. Just turn it on, record everything. You might not use it, but who knows?
Yeah. Well, you never know where a conversation is going to start when you're starting these things, and I don't know, but maybe I just need to start doing that, because I've been doing more. I'm trying to drive this show to more of kind of like an interview show. You know what I mean? Because I don't have a co-host or anything like that.
Oh, you don't have a co-host? Yeah. So it's either you talking, like that's the thing with the Distorted View guy. Like he does his own show, but he does different characters and things like that. I've never done my own show without I guess I've done it on radio, but I've never done like my own podcast, just me.
Yeah. for a while there, I was just picking topics and researching. And I go, this is boring and it's not as fun. And I was just like, I'm going to start reaching out to people and see if they'll come on to the show and just talk to me and let me hear,
it's
hear
a good
their
idea.
stuff. So
People like it, man.
yeah, because there's already 8 million true crimes out there, this, that, and another. And you know what? If I want to throw one of those in here, if I find something interesting, I'll do it. But that's just cooler. Sitting down, just getting to know someone, hear a little bit about their background, what they're doing, and where they're going with it. And
yeah, for sure, man. It's been a lot of fun.
yeah, and you're a big inspiration, man. To hear you guys stayed that you stayed independent and you guys keep doing this, and the big part of it is your fans, and I'm one of them, man.
Hey, well, I appreciate that. But believe me, if NBC or someone came out and was just like, hey, we want to produce your show, and it gave us a bunch of money, I would have sold out in a heartbeat. I don't give a shit.
I continue following you, man. There's nothing wrong with that. You got to pay the bills, man.
Yeah, fuck yeah. If I could do, that's the thing. It's like if I ever got to the point, I mean, it's a hobby and it's a fun thing to do. But if I ever get to a point where it's like, oh, I make enough money where I don't have to have a day job, fuck yeah, I would quit.
Yeah,
I would do it in a second. I'd quit my day job and I'd just be like, fuck you. Start doing the podcast.
Yeah.
Who knows? You never know what can happen though.
Yeah.
I always feel like, do you ever see that documentary, Decline of Western Civilization? There's a part 1 and part 2. Part 1 is all about the punk rock years in LA. Part 2 is all the heavy metal years. But in part 2, the filmmaker is interviewing Lemmy Kilmister from Motorhead.
No shit.
She's like, what do you reckon? And yeah, he's wearing like these tiny nut hugger jean shorts. And he's like up in the Hollywood Hills. And she's like, what would you recommend to bands that are trying to make it? And so, people ask me all the time, like, what do you recommend for a podcaster, like how to make it? Like, what do you recommend that we do to get big or to put it out? I always quote this because I've always found it really meaningful to myself. Lemmy's just like, I don't know, shove it up a flagpole and see who salutes it. And it's like, yeah, shove it up a flagpole, see who salutes it.
Yeah.
You never know who might listen to who might find your show,
Man, that's awesome, man.
Yeah, I've always found that inspiring. Well, cool, dude, man. It's been fun hanging out, and definitely send me a link to the show when it comes out.
Yeah, we'll do. What'd y'all think about that? I had a great time talking to D. Go show them some love. Check out their show. Write them a review. Write me a review on iTunes. Helps me out tremendously. Spread the love, guys. So, hey, we're going to be bringing back the Sinful Confession line very soon as well. We want to hear from you. Drunk, sober, crazy, whatever. Give us a call, 937-815-0821. Keep it under 3 minutes. We'll put it on the show. You have someone interesting you'd like to see on the podcast? Shoot me an email at The Sinful Show, sinful with a Y, at gmail.com. We'll get them on here. In the meantime, stay sinful, my friends.
I don't think anyone has a